How had the village made out? Was anyone injured or killed? The storm had not done much damage. There were just a few roofs missing here and there, and they had begun to repair them. The houses did not look too sturdy, but apparently they had been constructed to withstand this sort of weather. No one had been injured. The people had found shelter in their bunkers. Somewhere a radio was playing. There was not much furniture inside the houses, but what little there was had been moved around in the confusion of the storm. The blind man found it difficult to get around. Someone had mentioned that there were 10 more children in the village who might be helped by the doctors. As we left the village and walked back to the main road, someone fired 3 warning shots in the air.
Okay.
We went back to Saigon and gave the paralyzed boy the letter from his mother. He didn't want to read it in front of us. Vietnamese don't like to get emotional in public. He was a little upset to begin with. He had just learned that he would have to go to another hospital for neurosurgery, and at this moment, the doctors were operating on his cousin. It was a very complicated, very delicate operation. It lasted for 5 hours, a good teaching case. The Vietnamese surgeons watched as Dr. Isaacson from Sweden showed them how to use skin from the girl's face to repair her damaged temple.
In the right cheek over the zygomatic bone, and we intend to excise the scar tissue and first to replace it with normal tissue, bringing this piece of skin and subcutaneous tissue in front of the ear to cover this area, and then to take a piece of skin and subcutaneous tissue and bring it as a pedicle to cover the defect in front of the ear.
In the United States, such an operation would cost thousands of dollars. While the operation progressed, Long, the interpreter, was out in the city of Saigon trying to unravel the mystery of the little beggar boy who wouldn't talk about himself. He had managed to track down some relatives of the boy. He had found them living in a gloomy little house in a working man's section of Saigon. There was not much light in the room at first, and not much information. Our interpreter kept on questioning one of the women, who said she was Lon's aunt. Yes, Lon had lived there for a while. His mother had brought him here from the village, and had tried to support him by taking work as a maid for the family of a rich man. But Lon was a difficult child. He kept running away from school and getting into trouble. His mother had decided that she couldn't handle him, and she sent him back to the grandmother. The woman in the back of the darkened room started to speak. She had been working hard, she said, and had been sending money and letters to the little boy and the grandmother. She had been doing that for some time, but she had never received an answer. She was Lon's mother. She had been the mother of 5 boys. Lon was the only one alive. It was the day of Lon's operation. They did not say one word to each other. Not a greeting, not a kiss, not a word. Nothing. The situation became downright embarrassing for everybody. Long, the interpreter, tried to bring the mother and boy together. But something we didn't know about was keeping them apart. Across the ward, Dr. Isaacson was removing the little girl's bandages. There was still more work to be done, a bone graft to give her eye and brain some protection, but the first step had been successful. The nurses moved Lon from his bed to a stretcher, preparing to take him to surgery. He rejected the restraining belt. His mother remained silent. Dr. Isaacson continued to examine the girl, unaware of the silent drama going on behind him. Lon's mother didn't even say goodbye. Even under the anesthetic, Lon's eyes remained wide open. There was no doubt that he would have eventually gone blind. It would take at least 2 complicated operations. The surgeons could repair only one eye at a time. The boy's mother looked so empty, so desperate, that we decided to take her home. While Lon was unconscious on the operating table, we learned the whole tragic story. Lon's uncle was there, but he didn't want to talk to us. Our interpreter persisted, asking questions about the man himself and getting terse answers. The whole family had once lived in a village 2 miles from My Lai. It was Viet Cong territory. He had fled to Saigon in 1964, but it had taken a full year to get his wife and children here. But that same year, the man's father and 2 brothers were killed by mortar fire. One of the brothers was Lon's father. He had only been wounded in the attack, but for some reason, he had refused to go to the hospital. And so he died. The following year, 1966, there was another military action near the village. Lon's other grandfather was killed. So were 2 of the little boy's brothers. But what about the boy? A phosphorus grenade, the man said. That happened in 1967. Lon was just 6 years old then. He had found the phosphorus grenade somewhere, and he brought it home to play with, like a toy. That was how Lon was wounded. The explosion blinded Lon's grandmother and killed Lon's 2 remaining brothers. By the time of the tragedy in My Lai, you know, the village across the river from Lon's house, there were only 2 males left in the family. There was nothing more to say. He would never be beautiful, but he would not go blind. In a few months, he would be able to close both eyes. Then he would go back to his grandmother, go back to his land. He had made up his mind. He was just a little Gook who didn't know the meaning of the word peace.